Nice to see you up there. The bill that's before us is an act concerning extended producer responsibility for tires. And I'll just start by saying that this is a new bill for me. I wasn't really following this until I think just before the weekend I heard that it had been voted on in the House. But I still didn't realize that what was contained in this bill language, and I'm just getting through it this morning. It seems like a somewhat convoluted bill for a relatively simple problem. And let me actually start with a few questions to the proponent of the bill, if I could, through you, Madam President.
Please proceed. Prepare yourself, Senator Lopes.
Thank you very much, Madam President. It seems to me that all of this revolves around the idea that at certain times we end up seeing illegal dumping of tires. Is that the real focus that this bill is supposed to be concentrating on through you, Madam President?
Senator Lopes.
He'll do it. Thank you, Madam President. That is one of the main objectives, yes.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Is there another objective besides getting dumped tires from being a concern to our municipalities through you?
Senator Lopes.
A couple others, the transparency of, thank you, Madam President, transparency of where the $5 fee currently goes, hopes that that fee will actually be reduced, and obviously the lack of dumping and environmental concerns of illegally dumping in our fields and streams and meadows.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. So you mentioned a $5 fee, and I know that when I've gone to a tire dealer and bought tires before, I'm certain that they included some sort of charge, whether it was itemized or not, for the taking care of my old tires. But when you say a $5 fee, is there a $5 fee that is specified in statute through you, Madam President?
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe, yes, it is specified in statute.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Madam President. And can maybe the good chairman explain to me what that $5 fee entails? Is that something that we say to tire sellers that they can charge consumers per tire, and for what purpose through you?
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, I believe that is retailers must charge a $5 fee for every tire sold, and that $5 fee will go to the hauler as they take away the used tires.
Senator Sampson.
And thank you, Madam President. Does it specify in the statute? And forgive me for asking these questions. I would have been more prepared if I had a little more advance notice that I might be debating this bill. But is it specified in the current statute that the $5 is for that express purpose? And is the tire retailer required to only use that money? Do they have to set up a separate account? And are they simply being allotted the ability to charge $5 per tire to get rid of them? Or does it say that they have to get rid of them in some environmentally conscious way? Or they can simply just give them to someone else who might do that through you?
Thank you, Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. No, I don't believe that is specifically laid out.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Madam President. So it just says that they can charge $5 for fee for disposal. Is that correct through you?
And Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. That is my assumption. I believe that is true.
And Senator Sampson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. So it seems to me that, it might be beneficial to maybe work on what we have already from a policy standpoint. I don't know that that was necessarily good law when it was created, and I don't know how long it's been in law, because it seems to me that if tire retailers are required to get rid of tires in an environmentally sound or environmentally conscious using some sort of mechanism, then I don't know that we need all of this. So is there anything in the current statute at all that says how they can get rid of the tires? Just that they can charge $5 to dispose of them through you?
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. I did not reference the current law that in place. I'm just speaking to the bill we have in front of us today.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I'm asking because I assume since we're replacing this, we should know what the current law is and what the current law does. But barring that, let's get on with the process that's here. And I guess the reason why I'm standing here speaking today is because it seems like a very convoluted type process. From what I'm reading, what's going to happen is we in the legislature are going to pass a law potentially today, and from that point forward, what will happen is the state will be creating a stewardship program to manage discarded tires. And the process will be that we are going to get tire manufacturers or their designees, there's a whole set of questions around that too, but I won't get to those, at least not right this moment, to sit down and develop a program together to find out what the best way to get rid of tires is. So through you, Madam President, since the tire retailers are already doing this, and I'm assuming, and maybe the good chairman can correct me on this, the same tire retailers we're talking about effectively are going to be these designees, because Firestone is not headquartered in Connecticut, and other tire manufacturers are going to probably lean on the people that retail their tires for the purpose of coming up with this program. But we're going to let the same people that are actually doing it right now, but we're going to direct them by law to do it under this statute. Is that correct through you?
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. You almost got a chuckle out of me, my good friend from Wolcott, that currently we have a program where the state does mandate retailers do something. And we are trying to change this program over to a more of a fair market system where the industry players will actually take the active role on creating a program to dispose of these tires and really, in essence, leaving the state mostly out of it. DEEP has a role in terms of making sure they do it, but the reality is it's the industries. They're going to be determining how to do this and really self-policing themselves on most occasions. So that is the goal of this legislation.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. The good chairman knows definitely how to speak my language. He's trying to appeal to my sensibility to get the government out of things and talk about free and fair markets. But is it really a free and fair market? Through you, Madam President, are all tire retailers in the state of Connecticut going to be able to participate and have an equal voice in the creation of this plan through you?
Senator Lopes.
In my understanding, anyone in the industry will be able to participate in this program.
Senator Sampson.
Well, thank you, Madam President. I mean, by saying the industry is able to participate, what exactly is the mechanism for determining who gets to participate and how much say they have? I mean, if Firestone has a certain number of retailers, does that mean they get certain number of votes in the discussion about how the policy is created? And does it include folks that would not be designated because they're not actually designated by a manufacturer, maybe someone who's a tire reseller who sells used tires through you?
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. It is my understanding it is really up to them. It is up to the free market. They want to be involved in this program, and it is in their best interest to be involved in this program that they are going to come forward and say, hey, I want to be part of this. I don't want to be left behind. I don't want something passed by my industry that I don't like. So they will be part of the process should they wish to be part of the process.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Madam President. Could the good chairman point to me the spot in the bill where it says that any tire reseller can participate through you?
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't believe it's actually spelled out in this piece of legislation. It is the model of the current stewardship programs that we've already done, and it will follow that same model, which was that system.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Madam President. So if I've sold a handful of tires at a tag sale in my yard, am I eligible to participate as a tire reseller through you?
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. I do not believe so.
So thank you.
Senator Sampson,
Thank
sorry.
you, Madam President. I am at an extreme disadvantage here because I have not got through this entire bill, and I don't know the exact process by which the representatives of the industry are going to be determined so that they can participate in the creation of this program. The one thing I can say, though, for sure, is whether or not we included every member of the industry today, we're still not including every member of the industry. There are people that may want to go into this industry tomorrow. There may be people that want to go into this industry years from now and don't even know about it today. And we are eliminating them from the ability to participate in this process. Anytime the government is going to set up any regulatory scheme or structure, it's no longer a free or fair market at that point. And I suspect, even though I'm not getting those answers from the chairman, that there is a mechanism by which producers, actual people that manufacture tires, are required to appoint the folks that are going to participate. And I don't believe that it's going to include every retailer in the state. I wish I had the line numbers, but since the chairman can't point to those line numbers, I'm going to assume that I'm correct. Because those are the questions that I was asking very specifically. And the OLR analysis says the bill requires tire producers or their designees to join a stewardship program, which means that you've got to either be a producer or someone they decide speaks for them. And I'm quite certain that not every tire reseller speaks for all of the tire producers, and I'm quite certain the ones that resell tires do not. And this concerns me, that we're going to engage a certain players in the market to determine how this situation is going to work. I'd also suggest that I don't much care for the $5 fee that currently exists. A simple requirement on the retailers of tires that they must dispose of tires in an environmentally sound manner makes a lot more sense than any of this. You just say you can't dump tires. You got to find a way to do it, and you've got to build the cost into the your expenses. And I imagine that they do that anyway. So if the cost is actually beyond the $5 per tire that they're charging, they are building it in there. And to the extent that it's less, all of these different retailers are competing with one another, and they're building their expenses for keeping the lights on, their taxes, and their exposure, cost of wages and so forth, are all determining factors in the price that they charge for tires, including how they are going to get rid of them. There's a lot to say about this bill. I guess the concerns I have is the way that it's being portrayed, that somehow this is going to create some sort of market-driven mechanism. But I only got to the first part of this process, which is we are going to tell tire producers that they've got to get together and develop a plan. And through you, Madam President, what does the plan require? I know it requires them to develop a fee. I heard the conversation about how there's a fee yet to be determined in the future on how much this is going to cost the average person. But what exactly do the tire producers have to come up with as part of this plan? Through you.
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. The producers must come up with a plan to collect the tires and make sure they're disposed of properly and not in an environmentally safe way, and come up with a structure to pay for that and to execute it. Thank you.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Madam President. And they are not required to do that now, is that correct?
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. As we stated earlier in the introduction of the bill, there is a system in place, but there is no incentive for the haulers to distribute the tires or dispose of the tires correctly, which is the root of the problem of illegal dumping.
Senator Sampson.
How are these retailers not disposing of the tires correctly? Through you.
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. As explained before, and I will say very clearly, the vast majority of our retailers are doing this the right way. We're talking about a very small minority of companies that aren't doing this properly or are party to something that's not done properly. The vast majority do this correctly. But in certain situations, the retailers collect their $5 fee per tire. They have a hauler come to the facility. That hauler can pick up the tires, and they get paid at that point for $5 each tire they pick up. They therefore no longer have an incentive to make sure those tires are disposed of properly. They could, for instance, and it has happened, drive down the street, dump the tires, and go home. They've already collected their fee. This creates a system where the payment comes after the tires are disposed of properly, therefore making incentive, a business incentive, free market incentive to dispose of them to their end user properly.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. So there is no requirement in the law currently that those tire dealers have to sell the tires effectively to for the $5 per tire charge that they've collected to a responsible party that will dispose of them correctly. There's nothing that says that they can they just sell them to me, for example, through you, Madam President, if I went over to Town Fair Tire and I said, hey, you know what, will you guys sell me your tires for $5 each? Can they do that through you?
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm not sure if the good friend from Wilkett is responsible on tires, but I actually don't know if you have to have some sort of certification to pick up these tires, if you have to be a hauler or any person could do it. I'm under the assumption or my thought that you'd have to have some sort of regulatory authority, but I'm not sure.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, this is the crux of this whole bill for me. I mean, this is it. You know, we have a problem. We want to make sure that tires are disposed of properly, and we already have a mechanism in place. We already, a previous legislature said we're going to let these tire resellers or retailers charge $5 per tire, and then they've got to sell them to someone else to get rid of them and pass on that same $5. So the issue seems to be with the folks that are taking them away, not with the retailers. And if there's already a structure in place, I don't know why we're not simply concentrating on that and saying that the people that actually haul away these tires have to dispose of them in a responsible way. This seems like a lot of gobbledygook. This thing's going to take a couple of years before it ever gets going. We're going to let certain players in the industry decide what is right and what is wrong instead of letting us decide. And maybe my real issue with this thing, more than anything, is what Senator Harnig said earlier, which is that we don't even get to decide in the end. We don't even get to decide. We're going to lay the framework, but then we're going to let a partisan state bureaucracy decide. They're going to go ahead and decide whether the plan meets with their approval or not. And we don't even have a say in it at that point. That's absurd to me. Madam President, one thing we talk about in this chamber really is, how we come up with solutions. And I would argue that in almost every case, I would trust the people outside of this building to solve problems. When we leave government in charge of solving problems, we end up creating far many more. As you can see from this discussion, we don't even know most of the information. We do not know how many tires are left on the side of the highways or dumped improperly. Do we, through you, Madam President, do we know how many tires are left around the state improperly each year?
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. One estimate was 35,000.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Madam President. What is that 35,000? Is that the number of tires that are left disposed of, or is that the amount picked up or discovered, and over what period of time? Through you.
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe that is the estimate of the current number of illegally dumped tires right now in our state.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. So that would be the number of tires over the course of time that have been illegally dumped that might exist somewhere across Connecticut. If that's the case, does anything in this bill address picking up those disposed tires that are currently out there? Through you.
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, and indeed, that is one of the major issues of the bill. Once we pass this and we have a mechanism for end-use disposal of tires, municipalities can pick up the tires and, without a charge to the municipality, deliver them to an end user and get rid of the tires polluting our land.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Is the good chairman suggesting that there are 35,000 tires disposed of across Connecticut right now that municipalities are aware of and are just leaving there because there is not a mechanism for them to get paid back for disposing them? Through you.
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. The answer is yes.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Madam President. I find that shocking. And I don't know that drafting a bill that is going to leave tire producers in charge of developing a plan is going to end up with a net result of getting rid of those tires on the side. I mean, I think that the majority of the expense for municipalities doesn't have to do with getting rid of the tires themselves. They can, as we just discussed, $5 per tire is how you get rid of them to a hauler. But it's labor. It's, paying, municipal labor to go and collect these tires. Maybe they're down a hill someplace, or they're in a brook, or someplace that are difficult to retrieve, and that kind of thing. Is anything contemplated in this bill about, compensating municipalities for being able to recover those expenses, or is it simply that there's going to be some mechanism to dispose of tires for the public? Through you.
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. The latter, absolutely. It gives them a mechanism.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Madam President. So if I'm a municipality and I'm as irresponsible as has been impugned, that I'm just letting these tires sit in my town despite the environmental harm that they might be creating, because the expense of getting rid of them is so substantial, what on earth would make me want to change my mind suddenly if I'm just going to get the ability to bring them someplace and get rid of them? I don't see that helps anything. Right now, I think it's very inexpensive for them to actually get rid of them. It's the cost of retrieving, collecting, and being in a position to get rid of them is where the cost lies. I see this bill as a creation of a bureaucracy in the worst possible mechanism, where we're going to involve certain players from the industry to participate at a greater level than others, and they will certainly develop a plan that benefits them. And I am certainly not hostile to anyone in the tire industry. I just want to see good government. I want to see as little of it as possible where it doesn't belong. And I don't think this is a place where government belongs, except for answering the key question is, if we have dumped tires, how do we get rid of them, and how do we prevent people from dumping them in the future? To me, those are the questions. How do we get rid of the dumped tires? How do we prevent people from dumping them? So those are the questions that ought to be answered. But this bill doesn't answer those questions. We just established that all this does is create a lengthy process that will take time into the future to be created. We are empowering the private sector, allegedly the people irresponsible enough to allow this to happen, to come up with the plan to fix it, and then we're going to hand that over to a state agency who will approve it, and it will go into effect. And the taxpayers of the state are going to have a fee imposed upon them. I think that's quite clear. At the end of this, is there any chance there will not be a fee imposed on the taxpayers? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. The end result of what we're hoping for is that the existing $5 fee will no longer be in place, and that a new lower fee determined by the industry, not the government, the industry players, will be put in place. An example we use quite often is this program runs quite well in Canada. I know it's tough to compare us to Canada, but their current disposal fee is $2.96 a tire. So they're seeing, after they implemented the program, they're actually seeing a savings over our current fee.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Madam President. So what I heard from that was that this state legislature has already imposed a fee of $5 for something that Canada does for $3. That's what I heard. So to me, that's pretty good evidence that we're not about to go and make a better plan in the future either. And the answer to my question, which was a very straightforward question, was no. The answer is no, Senator Sampson. No, there is no chance that at the end of this, the taxpayers, the consumers, are not going to end up being charged a fee. And the question in that matter is that we do not determine that fee. The only control of what that fee will be that exists in this legislation is whether the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection ultimately approves the fee that is presented to them as part of the plan. Is that correct through you, Madam President?
Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam President. As he clearly states, we are trying to take government out of this process and leave it in the hands of the industry players. The people that create the tires are going to be in charge of finding a way to dispose of the tires, and they will be determining a fee on how much that would cost. DEEP does have a regulatory role to make sure that they get together and they do this, but that is their only role.
Senator Sampson.
I'm very sorry, Madam President. I'm trying to put together some amendments at the last minute. It's sometimes complex, especially when you've got to go through a waiver program, et cetera. And I certainly appreciate the words of my colleague. And if I felt that those words were an accurate depiction of the policy before us, I would find myself to be supportive, except we have several sections of law being created. And when you are creating several sections of law to create a policy, you're moving in the opposite direction from less government. That, by definition, is more government. And the industry is already policing itself. They are already doing this. As we mentioned, the problem really, as I think was described, is not really with the actual retailers. It is with who they actually transfer them to. But that's not addressed in this bill. Nothing in this bill addresses those haulers as they've been described. So I just want to say a few quick more things about this bill, and then I'm going to offer a couple of amendments. As I mentioned, the private sector is going to be a better solution in every case. And when the government gets involved and says, well, we're going to involve some of the private sector players in the process of developing the answer, the problem there is that we're also determining who's an eligible player. We are not truly engaging the views and desires of all participants in this activity into the future. It will be determined by whoever is a participating industry member right now. Not 1 year from now or 10 years from now. It's going to be whoever's involved in this process right this minute. And as I've already pointed out, I don't believe it's going to include everyone. I certainly don't believe it's going to include the people that are in the secondary sales industry. In almost every town across the state, there's somebody selling used tires. I got I think it's JM Used Tires in Southington, and they run a heck of a business. That place is busier than the new tire dealer. And I'm afraid that somehow this policy might leave them out of this situation. For me, one of the most environmentally sound things you can do is get the maximum amount of use out of these tires. So if there are tires that are being traded in effectively when you go to a new tire dealer, instead of having them destroyed or burned or whatever happens to them, to get them to somebody who might have use for them at a lower premium makes a lot of sense. I bought a lot of used tires over the years myself. I don't know that this specifically excludes that activity, but I feel like those parties might not be part of this program, and therefore they might be perceived as an element of competition that can be marginalized by the development of this plan. I don't believe that this is going to address the dumping issue. I was here maybe a decade ago when we passed a law that says that we're going to charge a tax on mattresses to have a stewardship program, and while I'm certain it does a lot of benefit, I still occasionally see a mattress on the side of the highway. It still happens, and I think we'll still see people dumping tires. And I think the solution to that really is to actually start imposing a real penalty for the dumping of tires. And I also think that maybe even creating a criminal penalty for somebody who is willing to go through that effort, and then enforcing our laws. And then, as we all know, that's a whole separate conversation in here about how we've lost sight of the rule of law and enforcement in the state. The good chairman, I appreciate a lot of his words, although, he referred to corruption and graft in his comments about how the tires are currently handled. First off, if there's corruption and graft, I think it comes in the form of government far more than it does in people simply trying to make a living in their industry. And if you are going to use the government to empower certain segments of an industry to make policy, there's nothing more explicitly corruption and graft than that, if you ask me. We have come a long way in this country from the notion that people get ahead by being free to make their own choices and invent things and use their ingenuity in the way they create products and perform services to challenge their competition and to win out and become successful. That's what made America great. Now, it seems like the way to get great in America and to become successful is to come here and learn how to lobby the legislature for favorable terms that help you against your competitors. And I don't know that that's what this is exactly, but this stinks of that in some respect to me, Madam President. There is no reason to go through this process, make it take so long, and then leave it up to the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection to be able to sign off on it. They have their own motivations. They might be very good motivations, but they're not the motivations of all the citizens of Connecticut. We're the ones that decide that. We're elected here to make the laws. We don't leave it up to people in the industry that are available and currently there now, aside from other participants, and let them make the law that is imposed upon all of us. This bill would be improved dramatically if we simply put a caveat that says that whatever these folks come up with as a program, and then it goes to the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, that it must ultimately come back to the legislature to be signed off by us, representatives of the people. And as a result, Madam President, I have an amendment. It's LCO 9842. I asked the clerk if he can call this amendment, and I'd be given leave of the chamber to summarize.
Mr. Clerk?
LCO number 9842, Senate Amendment A.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Madam President. Very straightforward amendment. It says after the last section, so it doesn't change the bill. It just says that after the last section, add this language that says any plan approved for an extended producer responsibility program pursuant to Section 1 of this act shall be submitted to the Joint Standing Committee of the General Assembly having cognizance of matters relating to the environment for approval of the General Assembly. Such plan should not be implemented until approved by both chambers of the General Assembly. I move adoption. I'd like a roll call vote.
Thank you. We will have a roll call vote, and the question is on adoption. Will you remark, Senator Lopes?
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to the good senator for his amendment. And while, as we've done similar things in other bills this session that I agreed with, in this particular situation, I would have to stand in opposition to the amendment, simply based on the fact that we worked exceptionally hard on this piece of legislation to get government out of this process. We are trying to get less government involvement in this process of removing tires. It's why a stewardship program is created. And we're trying to get the industry to police itself. We think they'll actually do a better job. The costs will come down. We know this because we've done this with similar programs. Mattresses, which the good senator referenced, used to be a blight to our cities and towns, being left all over the place, similar to tires. We did a stewardship program for mattresses years ago, and they are far and away not the problem they used to be. Yes, of course, you'll always see a discarded mattress here or there, but it'll be picked up almost immediately by the municipality because they know they won't get charged for disposing it. So they will pick it up and immediately get rid of it. It solves a problem. It's good for the environment. It's good for the industry. It's definitely good for the consumer. So I would stand in opposition to this amendment.
Thank you, Senator. Will you remark further? Senator Gordon, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank